Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. Want to improve your organization's customer service? Looking for insider tips to knock your customer socks off? Then you're in the right place. Here's your host, Yannick Grant.
Welcome to Navigating the Customer Experience. On today's episode, our guest is Jim Freeze. Jim is a Chief Marketing Officer, and he focuses on brand strategy and awareness, thought leadership, product marketing, demand generation, creative services, and public and analyst relations. Jim brings more than 25 years of experience leading marketing teams at Fortune 1000 and other enterprise technology companies, a history which includes proven success in all aspects of marketing, sales, and business development. Most recently, Jim served as the Chief Marketing Officer at Aspect Software, where he was responsible for all aspects of global marketing, including product management, product marketing, branding, advertising, customer experience, and demand generation programs. So without further delay, sit back, plug your earphones in, and let's jump right in to this fantastic conversation with Jim. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you so much. I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome. Okay, Jim. So I know I read a little bit about your journey, but we always love to hear the journey from our guests. So could you just take a little time and share with us how it is that you got into what you are doing today? You know, brand strategy, thought leadership, just tell us a little bit about that journey to where you are now.
Yeah, I've had a little bit of a kind of an unusual journey to be honest. I finished my undergraduate and graduate work and graduated back in the late 80s with a master's degree in mathematics. And my first job out of college was actually as a computer programmer. And,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting background. And I wasn't actually in marketing, but through a number of things that happened in my first position within the first 6 months, I was actually put in front of some customers for a number of reasons, and the sales and marketing team thought I was quite good in front of customers, so they said, "You're wasting your time programming, come over and join us on the marketing side," and that started the marketing journey. Along the way, I picked up my law degree as well, so I actually practiced law for 2 years, and 2 years was enough of practicing law to convince me that I wanted to go back into to marketing. So I came back to, after my stint in law, came back to high-tech marketing, and I've been doing it ever since. And it's been fascinating. The first company I worked for was a company that some listeners may have heard of, called CompuServe. It was kind of a pioneering company that was one of the first companies to allow people to use their home computers to go online. It was a proprietary online service, and then eventually became an internet service. And I've watched the advances in technology from 9.6 baud dial-up modems to where we are today. So it's been quite a journey, but one I've really enjoyed. And in particular, the last almost 9 years of my career have been spent in the customer service, customer experience space. As you mentioned, the previous company I worked at, Aspect Software, was kind of a traditional software company that focused on delivering ACDs and IVRs and workforce management software to enterprises. I was there for 6 years as the chief marketing officer, loved the company and loved the space. And for the past 2.5 years, I've been the chief marketing officer of Interactions. And my attraction to Interactions was understanding the customer experience space and understanding kind of legacy technology that is primarily still used today for delivering customer service and customer experience. I was really attracted to new contemporary solutions that were based on artificial intelligence that had the potential to dramatically change the customer experience in a very positive way, and at the same time helping companies drive cost out of their businesses. So, that's what really drew me to Interactions. Interactions is a leader in conversational AI with a very unique solution that combines our artificial intelligence stack that is once again called conversational AI with real-time human understanding. So it's humans and artificial intelligence working together, and as a result of that, we deliver extraordinary human-like conversations for our customers to their customers. and help them dramatically improve customer experience and drive cost out of the business. So it's a fun company. We're truly transforming the contact center. We're excited about it.
Mm-hmm.
We're a late stage startup, well north of $100 million in revenue and growing. So it's a fun time to be in the customer service, customer experience space.
Very nice. Excellent. So, Jim, you were talking a little bit about conversational AI, and this has been a very unconventional year for, I mean, no matter which country you're living in the world, everybody's impacted by this pandemic. How do you see, just almost like a kind of prediction for 2021, if you could maybe share some insight with us, maybe based on data or just insight that you've garnered from conversations that you've had with other people? Conversational AI really flourishing in 2021, and do you see it changing just the landscape of how customers interact with different businesses?
Yeah, I'd tell you this year has been profound in terms of the changes that we're seeing. I mean, across the tech landscape, what we've experienced because of the pandemic has really accelerated a lot of initiatives, specifically those that relate to artificial intelligence, that relate to automation. And part of the reason for that, and this is based on actual conversations we've had with customers of ours,
Mm-hmm.
it's pretty clear that business continuity plans that companies had in place didn't envision what ended up happening as a result of the pandemic. And I'll give you a couple of very specific examples. So we certainly have had customers who, in the March timeframe of this year, had to basically send employees to work from home.
Mm-hmm.
And in some cases, their contact centers, that meant sending contact center agents at home. And we found a lot of companies that were not prepared for that. Their business continuity plan didn't envision something like that happening.
Right.
Now, the assumption is, well, that we can just transition to home and set something up so they can work from home over their internet connection. In many cases that worked, but if you think about many companies rely on offshore agents, a lot of agents who are in Southeast Asia. And the assumption that agents in Southeast Asia have high-speed internet access at home is a bad assumption. And so we saw a lot of companies struggle. We worked overtime, 24 hours a day, really trying to help some of our customers address some of the challenges that I think that they hadn't necessarily anticipated. And as a result of that, we think there's a new set of priorities that are coming out for enterprises that they think about customer experience. And certainly one of those is increased use of technology to enable automation, but enable automation in a way that's not robotic, but truly human and delivers a good customer experience. So there's no doubt in our mind, based on what we've seen with our customers, that there is a significant acceleration of artificial intelligence initiatives, and there's very much a mandate now.
Amazing, amazing. So, boy, customer experience has definitely forced us to transform. And I mean, I personally think as a customer myself, since the pandemic, that customers focus a lot more on the quality of service that they're getting than before. Would you agree? I mean, how has it been where you are, where you live? Do you find that as a result of the pandemic, there's just more emphasis on how people are being served? Are they exercising empathy? Are they exercising care? Like, customers are just more aware of those softer skills in the interactions that they have, especially since this year.
Yeah, I think the emphasis and the importance of that has come to the forefront. And part of the reason for that is, once again, when the pandemic hit, a lot of companies were not necessarily prepared for how they had to change. And as a result, many of these companies, their service levels relative to how they deliver customer service really started to drop off. And I saw that personally in the companies I, as a consumer, do business with, where in the past, if I had an issue, I could maybe get it resolved after waiting in a queue for 5 minutes. And there were companies I was doing business with where I was in a queue for an hour. waiting to talk to somebody to resolve an issue. And I think those companies had good intentions to try to be able to resolve that, but they didn't have the infrastructure, the technology, and certainly not the people in place to address it.
Mm-hmm.
So this pandemic has, I think, demonstrated how fragile some of that infrastructure is. And so there's a heavy emphasis on trying to fix that. And there's no doubt, especially in this environment, that customer care, customer service, customer experience is becoming a huge differentiator for businesses. I mean, if you think about it, if you're, pick your favorite cell phone carrier, they use the same 5G, 4G technology. It's the same, iPhone or pick your favorite Android phone. There's not a lot of differentiation in terms of the actual service and the devices that are used. And you got to try to find a way to differentiate some other way. And customer experience is a great way to do that. Same thing with airlines. I mean, they all fly the same Boeing planes. They all the same Airbus planes, the same seats, the same routes in many cases. They've got to find a way to differentiate. And you can do that with price, but nobody wants to do a race to the bottom on price. So customer experience, delivering a terrific customer experience is a great way to differentiate. And it's more important now than ever.
Brilliant. I totally agree with you, Jim. And as you said, I mean, we're all competing. I think I was talking to an entrepreneur recently who said, she was a little discouraged and she was saying to me, but other people do the same thing I do. And I said, well, yes, I think every industry has competition. There's no industry that you are in, whether public or private sector, that you don't have somebody else that's doing the exact same thing that you are doing. I think the only thing that differentiates you is how it is that you deliver that service. Are you flexible? Are you available? Are you, giving great value depending on what value is to the customer that you're serving? And so that to many people is different things depending on what is important to me or to you. And of course, convenience, people will pay for convenience. Over the weekend, I went to, in Jamaica, where I live, we have almost the equivalent of price of Costco that you guys have in the States.
Yes.
It's called Price Mart here in Jamaica. And Jim, the line, it took me almost an hour just to get from the road, on the main road, just to get into the company's parking lot. I'm not talking in the building where the actual products are, just to get parked on their compound. It took over an hour, and this was on Sunday morning. And I had a brilliant idea. Okay, if I get up at 7 o'clock in the morning and I get there by 7:30, I'm sure I can get in and out before 8:30. I didn't end up leaving there until close to 10 o'clock. And I mean, it was after I left, I was told by a few friends that, they offer delivery services now. They don't go there anymore because they just deliver to them. It's so much easier. And now that I'm thinking of it in hindsight, I'm saying, boy, that would have been such a much better experience than me sitting in traffic for over an hour, then going inside and joining these elongated lines that was just so frustrating. So convenience is something that I know customers will pay for because time is money.
I couldn't agree with you more. There's plenty of research from many different companies and research firms that suggest that consumers will absolutely pay a premium for good or great customer service because of the point you're making, which is, time is money, and people don't want their time wasted. They want companies that they do business with to respect them, and one of the ways you can respect them is to respect their time. I mean, I'll share with you a story that happened to me recently. I was calling a company I do business with, and it was on a Saturday, and the service I was getting wasn't working. So I went through their frustrating menu tree and finally got after about 5 minutes, into what I thought was going to be a queue to wait for somebody to come onto the phone. And after basically 5 to 6 minutes of finally getting to the point where I thought I was going to go into a queue and wait longer, they come back with a message. We value you as a customer. Please call us back on Monday at 9 a.m. Basically, we're closed. And I'm like, no, you don't value me as a customer. You just wasted 6 minutes of my time. You could have told me that from the beginning. So as a consumer, I'm like, do I really want to do business with this company, right? So I couldn't agree with you more, Yanni.
Amazing, amazing. All right, Jim. So we spoke a little bit about artificial intelligence. What are some other insights in terms of like customer service trends that you've seen for 2020 that you think will definitely accelerate in 2021? And let's say a lot of our listeners are small business owners. They may not necessarily have the big budgets like some of the bigger organizations. Are there any trends that came on board that you think they could possibly take on a small scale that would make a difference to their customer experience, you think?
Yeah, I think one certainly we just hit on, which is that differentiation. Customer service is a great way to differentiate. Second, the enabling self-service for customers, and there's lots of different kinds of technologies that can help with that. I think the assumption that some companies have, certainly some larger companies have this assumption, but smaller ones as well, is that when there is a contact from a consumer, that consumer necessarily wants to speak to a human. And that's actually not true. At least from my experience, it's not true. What consumers really want is to be able to resolve their issue. They want quick and effortless answers to questions. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go through a human to do that. So if you can enable self-service in a way that's effortless and quick, that'll lead to really satisfied customers. If you make it available 24/7 on a channel of choice, that also will really help. Having it not be robotic, but truly conversational, and just having it personalized. I mean, it's a lot of companies. If you call in with your mobile phone and they have that number or your landline, if they know who you are, why go through an authentication if you can say, yeah, we know who it is, and personalize the experience a bit. So I think one of the trends we're seeing is that companies are starting, large and small alike, questioning really what their customers want, and not necessarily just assuming they know, but questioning it and having a good understanding. And once again, I'll give you a great example based on our experience. It's very common for us to go in and displace at our customers legacy technology. A legacy technology would be something like an IVR. When you call in, it says, press 1 for this, press 2
Oh,
for that.
so annoying.
Yeah, or you can say things like billing, right? It tells you how you're allowed to behave. And it's a terrible customer experience, and customers don't like it, and it's very frustrating. But one of the things we've seen with a number of customers we've dealt with is that they assume that they know the 4 or 5 reasons that customers are calling them. So they'll present those 4 or 5 options in a menu: 1 for billing, 2 for technical support, 3, whatever it is. So they assume they know. And one of the things that we've found is that, and we counsel our clients to do this, is take a step back and say, what are your customers really trying to solve here? And sometimes we'll do something where we call it an intent study, where we'll inject ourselves, and instead of saying you can press 1 or 2, we'll do this brief intent study where we say, instead of all that, we just say, how may I help you? And the consumer tells you.
Right.
And we do that over the course of a short period of time, and you come back and you realize, actually, your customers are calling for 4 different reasons than you thought they were. So I think it's really important that companies focus on understanding why their customers are calling them. And as a consequence of that, I think you can enable much better automation and self-service that ultimately delivers a much better customer experience.
Amazing, amazing, amazing. All right. So, Jim, could you share with us what is the one online resource, tool, website, or app that you absolutely can't live without in your business?
Boy, I tell you, that's a tough one. I don't necessarily know that there's just one, not a single site, but I think it's a combination of news sites, research, financial, and analysis tools that kind of allow me to gain customer insight, competitive analysis, and keep myself current on technology. So, I have some go-to sites. We as a business, we subscribe to some research from analyst firms. I find that very helpful. find some on my own, and there are certain news sites that I also find really helpful. So it's tough for me to say one site because I think there's a combination, and that's the beauty of the web, right? You don't necessarily have to rely on a single site, but I have some go-to sites that and research and analysis that I find really helpful in keeping me current and helping me better understand kind of what's happening in the market.
All right, sounds good. Okay, Jim, could you share with us maybe one or two books that have had the biggest impact on you? It could be a book that you read a very long time ago that still has a great impact on you, or maybe a book that you read recently that still, resonates with you.
Well, a year ago I might have answered this differently, but I'll tell you what's kind of resonated with me recently, and I did read this probably, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 years ago. There's a book by Doris Kearns Goodwin, who's a presidential historian. She wrote a book called No Ordinary Time. And it was about kind of the 1930s through the 1940s, through basically the Roosevelt administration in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And it was an extraordinary time that the country was going through, a depression, trying to come out of that depression, and then rolling into, World War II. And, I think about the reason I think that book was so impactful for me was thinking about this notion of he put together this idea, Roosevelt, of a team of rivals, where he realized that he needed people who had a different perspective than he did to navigate through an extraordinary time. And part of the reason that book really is resonating with me so much today is because of what we've all been through since March with this pandemic. I mean, the world is so different than it was in February, just 8, 9, 10 months ago. It is a very different world. And I think of how we could all benefit from that notion of coming together and focusing on tackling very large issues, not in a partisan way, but in a kind of a way that brings us together. So that book has been on my mind recently, and I thought, this reminds me, the current circumstances remind me of that.
Amazing. So we will have the link to that book in the show notes of this episode for any of our listeners that may want to connect with that book.
It's
All
a
right.
great book.
Yes, yes, for sure. Okay, Jim. Now, what's the one thing that's going on in your life right now? It can be something that you're really excited about, either something you're working on to develop yourself or your people.
This is it relates to our company, but it's another result of the pandemic. I'll tell you a little story, which is kind of interesting. We at Interactions, we were in February, March, about to sign a new 11-year lease on a brand new corporate headquarters. It was like 56,000 square feet. We were going to spend millions of dollars in renovating it. It was a dedicated building. And early March hit, and the pandemic came, and we started working from home, and we were literally within a week of signing the agreements and the lease for that I think it was towards the end of March. And we took a step back and we said, what are we doing? We've been working at home for 3 weeks now, and everything's working great. Maybe we can learn something from the current circumstances. So we went from, in the course of about 6 weeks, from about to sign a new lease, 11-year lease, and spend millions of dollars on a renovation, to making a decision to become a full-time work from home company.
Mm.
And and we've seen other companies do that as well, and talk about, lots of companies are doing that, and it's very profound. And for us as employees, for me personally, that meant that I had flexibility to work from wherever I wanted. And I've always had we were headquartered in the Boston area, and I lived in Boston, but I had a second home in South Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And so right after Thanksgiving, I have moved to South Florida, and I'm talking to you from South Florida right now. I'm
Oh,
in Fort
wow.
Lauderdale, and this is my new home, and it's exciting for me because I have tremendous personal flexibility now that I didn't necessarily have before. We've seen that with a number of our employees. It's impacted our business in that when we're recruiting for new employees, and we're hiring right now. So it's another example of how the pandemic has accelerated decision making and thinking among companies, and how it impacts individuals personally. I'm super excited about that. I'm really excited about the fact that I can live in a place where I didn't think I'd be living for another 5 or 6, 7 years. So there are some benefits that are coming out of what we've all been through.
Definitely, definitely. It's so interesting that that's what you shared because I recorded a solo podcast last night, Christmas edition that we want to release hopefully for tomorrow. And in doing my research, it said that 82, according to a PwC report, it said 82% of office workers would prefer to continue working remotely at least part of the time, even after COVID-19 has subsided. And a whopping 73% of executives say working remotely has been a success. I mean, here in Jamaica, there's a client I have, and one of their business lines is pensions, and their entire pensions department has moved to work from home, and the manager for that department has said that she doesn't think they're actually going to go back to in office because she's actually seen the team be more productive since they've been working from home, and they've saved so much.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. We obviously are going to spend a lot of money on a facility, and we do still have a facility that we'll meet occasionally face to face, but it's been scaled back dramatically.
Mm-hmm.
So, if somebody's in town on business, they can go work in the office if they want, or if we want to have like a department meeting, we can do that. But to your point about productivity, I used to drive to the office in Boston. It was an hour drive to work, and then based on what traffic was coming home, another hour, typically an hour and 15 minutes.
Wow.
That's over 2 hours of my day that now I can dedicate to work as opposed to being behind the wheel of a car. I mean, it's
Mm-hmm.
the
You
the
could be
productivity
exercising, you
increase.
could be meditating, you could be doing so many other things
I
that
could
would
be doing
be.
lots of things. Exactly, exactly. I mean, there's so many more productive things to be doing than sitting behind the wheel of a car.
Oh,
So
goodness. Trust me.
But
That's brilliant.
the impacts of this are pretty profound, and it's not just obviously in the U.S. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
The impacts are profound. I mean, what does this mean for the commercial real estate market? Office space.
Mm-hmm.
I think a lot of large towers or office spaces now are having to rethink. What are we going to do with this space? There may not be that much demand for it. I mean, we're all using less gas because we're not going as many places. We're changing everything about our lives, and it has impacts all the way down the supply chain. It creates opportunity for many, and in some, it's going to force businesses to change and adapt. So it's a scary and exciting time.
Yeah, it is. It's so true. Because even as you mentioned, in terms of traveling, you're spending less on gas, as you said. One person may be benefiting in one area, but then the persons who benefit from certain amount of gas sales, they are definitely not benefiting as much because people's cars are clearly parked, more than they would be driving on the road back and forth. So yeah,
Absolutely.
there are definitely advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, and it'll be back to when, 6 months from now, hopefully, people across the world have been vaccinated, and this thing kind of, by virtue of herd immunity, goes away. But I think we're never going back to life the way it was. It's different. It's gonna stay that way.
Yeah. I was listening to a podcast yesterday, funny enough, and the lady said something I thought it was so hilarious. She said, "We're never going to go to a birthday party again and you're going to see a bowl full of M&Ms." As in, for kids to dip their hands in or parents to dip their hands in. So everybody's now going to start buying the packaged M&Ms or anything that, you would have shared communally. You're now going to ensure that each person has their own individual packet. And all of that was born out of COVID. I mean, I just think certain things will change for the long term. People are going to be so much more conscious of just, touching and sharing in terms of different things. And they won't be as open to just doing things that we would have taken for granted before.
Yeah, no, I mean, simple. I was thinking about this the other day. I haven't shaken somebody's hand since mid-March. I mean,
That's
and I'm a business
crazy.
executive, and I meet people, and nobody does that anymore. And
Mm-hmm.
and I kind of wonder if we're going to go back to that, or if we're going to adopt, much of what's done in Asian cultures, which is bowing, which I think that's kind of interesting. Maybe that's what we'll all do. So I mean, it's yeah, everything is changing, and part of I'm somebody. I mean, some people hate change, right? I love change. I think.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think change is exciting, and so I try to embrace it when it happens. And
Yeah.
so, but the world's going to change.
Yeah, agreed. All right, Jim. So our listeners would have listened to this podcast and they're like, I like this guy. He's pretty cool. I want to connect with him. I want to follow his journey. I want to listen to his podcast too. Where can your listeners find you online?
So you can find me a couple places online. Certainly, you can find me on the Interactions web, just wordinteractions.com. On that website, you'll find me. In addition to our podcast, we just completed season 3 of our podcast, which is a podcast that focuses on the impact of artificial intelligence and on business and society. And this past season we've had some great guests from some leading technology companies like Salesforce and others. So you can certainly find me there, and you can also find me. Just do search on James Freeze or Jim Freeze on LinkedIn, and you'll find me there. And please connect with me if you'd like. And I'd love to have people connect with me there or reach out to me on our website.
Great. All right. Now, Jim, before we wrap our podcast up, we always like to ask our guests, do you have a quote or a saying that during times of adversity or challenge, you'll tend to revert to this quote? It can help to maybe refocus you or just get you back on track in terms of, any form of backtracking that you may have been experiencing.
I do. And and boy, talk about it being very pertinent to the current days. It's from Maya Angelou. Do you know Maya Angelou?
Yes.
She's a wonderful, wonderful writer
Yes.
and poet. And she has an expression that I've used a number of times over the course of the past few months. And it's kind of instructive to me personally. And she said something once. She said, "People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." And it's a constant reminder to me, especially in times of adversity, that for the people I deal with, they're gonna, I want to kind of leave them with an impression about how I make them feel, and I think it's so instructive, and I think it's a very powerful statement.
Amazing. All right. So yeah, that's actually one of our very favorite quotes for navigating the customer experience, and one of my personal favorites as well. And it's so true, Jim. I mean, and you being in the technology and data side of customer experience in terms of artificial intelligence, I am sure at the end of the day, even though technology is there to assist us in delivering or solving our problems for our customers, at the end of the day, people still want to be treated well. They want to feel good after they've done business with your company. And that feeling
Absolutely.
can't come if you're not, it's the little things. If you're not being responsive, if you're not fixing the problem, if you're not giving them what it is that they're seeking in that moment, they're not going to want to spread good news about you and your company. And so, yeah, it's really all about how you make people feel, their emotional needs.
Yeah, I mean, just being honest with people and and understanding and being transparent and just being cognizant of how somebody feels when they walk away. They may not even get the answer that they want, but if you've treated them respectfully and you've been honest, people will remember that, even though they
Yeah.
didn't get the right answer. So I just think, especially in our current times, it's really important. And it's something I think about a lot in terms of the
Yeah.
way I interact with others as well.
Amazing. All right. Well, we've come to the end of our interview. Thank you so much, Jim, for jumping on today with us and sharing all of these wonderful insights. It was a great conversation, and we really, really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us today.
Thank you so much for having me on, and I really very much appreciate it.
All right. So I just want to remind you guys to follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX, and feel free to join our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community, on Facebook. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant. Thank you for listening to Navigating the Customer Experience. If you'd like to connect with us even more, please feel free to hop onto Facebook and join our private Facebook group, Navigating the Customer Experience Community. And of course, feel free to follow us on Twitter at NavigatingCX. We also have a new book available on Amazon, The ABCs of a Fantastic Customer Experience. It's available in ebook and paperback. So if you want to increase revenue in your organization, build a stronger service culture, and create employees or develop employees who are really mastering service delivery in your business, you need to grab a copy of this book. Until next time, I'm your host, Yannick Grant.
Thanks for listening. For more awesome resources to take your customer service game to another level, head over to navigatingthecustomerexperience.com. See you next time.